Well, this is something unusual and potentially a bit confusing for the people out there.
Woo!
Welcome to The Washing Up, a podcast about, well, another podcast. I am your host, Chris, or as I've been referred to by Tegan Higginbotham, Bucky Boy. And with me is my co-host and somewhat the brains of the operation, Christy.
Hello, everyone.
So what this is, for those who have no concept, which will be most of you because it's the first time you will have heard this is a podcast dedicated to the Cooling Rack podcast, which is a podcast about the Great Australian Bake Off. So it's kind of Inception, I think.
It is. We're delving down through mines, into mines, and just rabbit holes everywhere.
Yeah, and hopefully, unlike Inception, more people will understand what we're doing. We can only dream, I suppose, really.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Ellen Page just wander in for a quick hello before they move on to...
That's episode 2. You don't burn your big celebrities early on. You've got to learn. Okay. You've got to learn this, and you know, obviously, like I mentioned at the start there, that there was a shout out in episode 1 from Tegan Higgs boson.
Higgs boson.
The particle thing.
Yes.
Yep, definitely. Higgs boson, where she got my name wrong. And I'm over it. I'm well and truly past it. I've not...
There, Bucky boy.
I'm not struggling with it.
Buchanan.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
I'm not struggling with that at all. This podcast is not my way to get back at Tegan for that. I promise you. Stop giggling. It's not like that.
No.
But what we're actually hoping to do is, in reality, we looked at the podcast and it's, first of all, it is a genuinely brilliant podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, the Twitter conversation, and they've made mention about this on the podcast too, the social media conversation, the Twitter conversation for Australian Bake Off has been outstanding.
It has. I love it when you get to a TV show where you find a great community, good minds, just to gaff on about things to take your mind off everyday life.
And it's positive, which I like.
Yeah, there's no, I want to see that person just be ripped to shreds and blah, blah, blah. No, it's wonderful and uplifting, and it gives you like just such a warm and fuzzy feeling.
There's genuine disappointment when someone has to go home or someone has a bad bake.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that everyone's enjoyed seeing, I think, when someone's had a failure is, as they referred to on the podcast, Fiona becoming Sweary Fiona.
Sweary Canary Fiona.
Sweary Canary Fiona,
Fiona.
which was fantastic and wonderful, and I think they should just be her all the time, because I like the fact that they just let her be her.
Yes, I'd love to get a T-shirt that says "Fuck Fiona." Everyone thinks it's evil, but it's actually quite, like it's like "Fuck Fiona."
Empowering.
Yeah.
Empowering is what you're going for instead. No, I like that idea. So what we're looking at in this episode is kind of, we're looking at the first 4 because we've started late, obviously. We don't have a note to say why we're late, but we've started late. Mm-hmm. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at sort of the big issues over the first 4 episodes, and then week after week, after they release the Cooling Rack, we will then release the Washing Up.
It's the only time we'll actually do the Washing Up.
It is the only time I do Washing Up, you know this.
Yes.
I will cook and bake, and actually before this podcast, and it's on the Twitter account, I did actually bake quite a substantial batch of cookies.
You did. I mean, I abhor housework that much that I took on a second job to pay a cleaner. I just would prefer to be hosting trivia than I would.
Having said that, the second job was where you sort of came up with this idea.
Yeah,
So we'll take that.
Yes,
It's paying for itself already.
Yes.
And what we thought we'd begin with before we get into the Australian episodes is they did mention the fact that they bailed, like the cowards that they are. They bailed.
Tegan didn't technically.
No, but Paul jumped from the moving vehicle at 100 miles an hour. Yes. And what we're going to start with is we're going to actually have a look at the end of the Great British Bake Off, because we think that those people that maybe followed along with the Cooling Rack for that might want to know how it ended, because it did end in more ways than one. It has sadly turned out. It has ended. But at the end of the day, Candice won.
which is well deserved.
It was
absolutely well deserved.
Hugely well deserved. Selassie which was mentioned on episode 1 of the Cooling Rack, that I'd mentioned that I liked Selassie. I
He's a cool dude.
I like Selassie. He's a great dude, very chill.
He makes Tea Towels just look. He gives Tea Towels a reason for being, as far as I'm concerned.
He does, and I mean, although I think his purpose for being inside the tent sort of ended when Benjamina went home, because the flirting back and forward sort of, he had no one to flirt with.
Well, I'm sure he tried it on with Mary Berry, but they just edited that out of the show. So
Mary
we got very steamy with some soggy bottoms and such.
And Mary just winks at everybody too. So
yeah.
And besides, everyone else was distracting Mary with gin. But what I found with Selassie was, great guy, wonderful guy. You'd love to. Well, I mean, he's already indicated on his social media he wants to go on a motorcycling tour with Paul Hollywood.
That has to happen.
They should film that for Channel 4.
It's Paul Hollywood's redemption, really.
You turncoat Paul, you. But he's not the greatest baker in the world.
Oh, he's better than me. That's not really a big...
As I was saying, he's not the greatest baker in the world. And he sort of rode to the last 4 on Cult of Personality. And the one cake where he did beautiful flowers, that was sort of the thing that carried him through. Beyond that, Selassie was always, it hasn't really worked, but aren't I cool?
He never made Star Baker, never.
No, it hasn't really worked, but aren't I cool?
Yeah.
I'm really cool.
Watching me smile, like
Look,
give you a wink.
Look at me smile and wink at everybody. So Candice won, I mean, and from the moment that she made that gingerbread pub, she probably deserved to win from that moment on. You could have saved everyone the hassle of watching Jane try and fail with a collar a second time.
I mean, she had me, first of all, with the fact that she looks like Marjorie Tyrrell, what's her name? Natalie Dormer and Posh Spice's love child. Like, she's like their little love child that's come out with this amazing lipstick. And then she's just got this good old pub kind of voice, you could go up and go, oh, I'd like a pint, love. And she'd go, all right, I'll get you a pint. That's my English there.
As you'll see, accents are a strong point of this show.
Absolutely. And she was just all round likeable. Nothing to dislike about Candice. Even her
nothing. You're right. You are right. There's nothing really to dislike about Candice at all. But we did comment, and it has been said, that the quality of bakers this year not overwhelmingly high. There were lots of times where they'd be judging the technical, and you could just see that Mary and Paul were looking at it, thinking to themselves, "Who's made the least mistakes?"
Yeah.
Not who did the best job, who made the least mistakes, and it was sort of one of those years, which is not something you can say about this year's Great Australian Bake Off.
Oh, the first episode, as Tegan and Paul very pointed, like just pointed out, it was just such a uplifting, and well, they didn't say that. I'm just vibing off what they said, but I agree.
No, what they said in episode 1 was Bucky Boy. So
yes, but they were also gushing about how good the Great Australian Bake Off was, and that's exactly how we felt. They're the voice of the people. They had it coined right away that we were there, we were ready, and just impressed.
Now, while we've talked, obviously, and we've indicated, and we'll go into it in more depth about how wonderful, I think we need to sort of do a quick profile of what we've gathered from the first 4 about both Paul and Tegan. Now, I've got a theory that I've been boring you with all week that I need to...
You need to share this with the world, though.
I need to share this with the world.
You've got me convinced.
Now, for those who, if you've seen, obviously, some of Paul's other work, and I'm not talking about his lovely steampunk attire that he sometimes wears on TV, hosting children's quiz shows, I actually think that some of Paul's greatest work, of course, is his YouTube videos about Doctor Who. Now, I think that Paul's actually carrying a significant amount of baggage as a result of Doctor Who. And I say this as a Whovian. And
I mean, we all do. As far as, part and parcel of being a Whovian is to have your heart broken and your mind bent and to become slightly paranoid. But most of us deal with it.
Not everyone gets on a podcast and abuses an old man from Tasmania.
No.
And Paul has decided to pick a kindly old baker from Tasmania as his...
He's not that old. I mean, he's older.
By comparison to everyone in the tent, he's the kindly... By comparison to Antonio, toot toot. We'll come back to that later too. But he's the kindly old wise. I've won every competition, and
He's the Gandalf of the tent, really.
he is the Gandalf of the tent. You're right. You're very much right. However, Paul doesn't see it that way.
No.
I'm convinced that Paul sees Noel as a Cyberman. Now,
Explain.
I have to explain this. Now, I think that he said a couple of times that Noel seems a bit robotic, a little bit like he's sort of like a computer or a machine. I think he sees him like a Cyberman who I think he worries has been sent to the tent to delete it eventually.
This could be continuing on from paranoia brought up from the Great British Bake Off. I mean, clearly we saw Paul Hollywood, who has a lot of those characters, just successfully sabotage.
Delete the Great British Bake Off.
Delete Great British Bake Off as we know it.
So it could actually happen, so that he may have reason to fear. But I also think it sort of reflects in other things. I think Paul might worry that everyone's a Cyberman. I mean, there's I think it was episode 2, I think it was, where he was concerned about Tegan sounding like Siri.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a worry there about her computer future and that maybe she might be a Cyberman. Who knows? Also, the fact that the podcast starts with a ding. Now, most ovens nowadays are more like a buzzer than a ding.
I like the ding.
You like the ding?
Love the ding.
You love the ding? You're a fan of a good ding?
I'm a fan of a good ding. Let's cut that bit out.
No.
Oh,
much in the same style of what they've done on Cooling Rack. No edits.
All right. Hi, Mum. Oh, who am I kidding? My mum knows about sex.
Anyway, back to the ding versus the buzzer. So, ding versus the buzzer. Where do you lay on a ding versus the buzz?
Well, if I'm alone... oh, no. Okay. In regards to this... The ding's great. It's reminiscent of your granny's kitchen. It's reminiscent of like younger days, licking on the wooden spoon with the cake mix or the spatula or whatever, and the ding, like the little ding goes off, and you run in and you're like, oh, it's ready. And
my grandmother never set a ding on the timer. She used to look in the oven every 2.5 seconds until she worked out it was ready.
Yes, but your grandmother was also Hyacinth.
She was very Hyacinth Bouquet, so bucket dear.
Bucket.
I think that Paul also got thrown off by the human emotion that Noel showed in week 2. He was relating to Antonio, which I think also was a bit of a jealousy issue. We'll come back. But
he came round.
Well, he did, except...
Do you think it's a front?
Well, then week 4. In week 4, when Noel said he didn't really care for chocolate.
Oh, then he's like, only a
He
Cyberman.
lost him.
Yeah.
So I think that's... I think it's real. However, I would counter that he's not a Cyberman. And I have one piece of evidence in Chocolate Week.
Okay, what is this evidence?
At no point during Chocolate Week did Noel turn around and say that he preferred carob.
Yeah.
And carob would indeed be a sign of a Cyberman because it's trying to fit in with humans, but at the same time not quite getting it right. And Noel, and you would expect someone to be blunt, someone who's from Tasmania who looks a little bit like Noel, you would expect that he would be selling the benefits of carob.
He could be living plastic.
Oh.
He could be the living plastic.
Oh.
No, I'm just...
No. And the other thing I think with Paul that we've learned, possibly disturbingly, who knows, it's very early in the podcast, the Antonio Express.
Toot toot.
Toot toot indeed. I think that...
I mean, we're all on the Antonio Express.
I mean, look, we all like that. We've all paid the fare. We've all got a ticket.
I mean, when I was 16, I was like writing sappy, angsty love poetry about boys I had a crush on, and here's Antonio just going through that.
My only issue with Antonio is I'm a teacher, so I'm not naturally, sort of set up to enjoy teenage glory for any period of time. I'm usually set up to start enjoying teenage glory, followed by watching them rapidly turn as their hormones change, and eventually they start failing at everything they do and blame me for it. That's what I'm used to.
Yeah, it is your fault.
It is my fault. It's always my fault.
Caring, passionate teacher.
My fault. But I also think that he sees himself as like the Homer Simpson to the Peppy, the bigger brother. And not calling him Pepsi. He won't call him Pepsi.
No.
But no brand names here, although.
No brand names.
Devondale. Yeah, hashtag Matterley. And by the way, everybody, that's a great hashtag to get on, MeadowLee, for that, as they pointed out on the cooling rack. But we think you should take it a step further. Every time somebody wins a round of the Great Australian Bake Off, you need to tweet them back with hashtag MeadowLee. You ought to be congratulated.
Yep. Brilliant.
That works for me.
Exactly. Ripper Rita. Wrong one.
No, we're on to Eater now. Well, we're mixing our margarines. Let's not mix our margarines, folks. That doesn't go very well at all. So have you had any other revelations about Paul yet, or are we just sort of...
I know you've put me on the spot. I was all in margarine land. I kind of still am.
Kind of in the marge?
Kind of in the marge. Look, Paul overall, he's the anchor of the show. When we get on to discussing Tegan, we'll see why he's so important to keeping us based in reality. And he says that, he reminds Tegan that people like the reality at home.
Yes, he does.
That's true.
He really does.
If someone on a podcast farts, if their kid comes in complaining about something, I love it. I haven't heard a fart yet. Oh, no, I think I did on a Kevin Smith podcast. But dogs barking in the background, sirens, great.
I thought Kevin made a series out of that because that's Kevin. So just make a series out of anything.
Indeed.
They need shows over at Smodcast. Now on to Tegan.
Yes. Voice of the people, as far as I'm concerned. Voice of the people, Tegan.
Voice of the people, and again, sometimes drinking, sometimes not.
I know.
Although what I will point out is that the show gets a lot filthier when they're sober.
That's got to be.
Episode 4 was full of innuendo and smut left, right and centre. Episode 3, she was on medication and alcohol.
Yes.
So
glorious.
When Tegan's drinking and on medication, it's a very sort of sedate show.
To be honest though, I'm sure that's what nuns are on, just medication and alcohol.
Medication and alcohol? They're not high on GOD?
Probably on that as well.
Maybe GOD is an acronym for something else. Anyway, back to Tegan. Yes, and as you said, the voice of the people, voice of the voiceless, some would even say.
Yes.
I think so. I definitely think so.
Tweet of the Twitter.
Tweet of the Twitter?
Yes.
Yes, we'll go with that.
Insta of the gram.
Mispronouncer of the names. No, I'm over it. I'm over it. It's done. I don't hold any grudges at all.
Bucky boy holds no grudges.
Good on you, Hannah Gadsby. No, sorry, Tegan. Sorry, easy to mix up there with.
Come on, Bucketin. Move on.
Fine. Okay.
Build that bridge.
I'm trying.
Walk across it.
I'm trying. Anyway. Now I think the line that sets Tegan up is where she went, week 2, I'm all in.
She is all in.
I think she's more all in than even she knows, really.
Yeah?
I think she's really all in.
How so?
I think week 2 set the tone. I don't actually think she ever left week 2. You see, week 2 was when the buildings were happening, and boy, will we come back to the buildings. Mm-hmm. But week 2, she very casually mentioned Diana and her building of the Eiffel Tower. And remember that Diana built the Eiffel Tower because she'd never been there, and so it was her hope one day. I personally thought it was just a really cheap way to complete the bucket list by building an Eiffel Tower and going, look, I've been, and have a photo taken in front of it.
Look, maybe her other hints to her partner or significant other about what she wants to do on her next significant birthday haven't really hit home yet. That all the Parisian decorations through the house and the French poodle she's bought and possibly the
beret that she's sporting,
and
the jaunty beret, is not doing
it. The Napoleon outfit she's... She walks around singing Waterloo. I don't know.
This is Stockholm calling.
Indeed.
But she's never really left week 2 because she mentioned Diana and that amazing Eiffel Tower, then starts talking about the Arc de Triomphe and the cars. I'm pretty certain at this point that Tegan's mind started wandering and she was on a tour of Paris. And it became a sort of a running thing. Paul is the only person who seems to have any details about what they did in Paris. And I'm starting to think that maybe Paul's doing it to sort of comfort Tegan.
Right.
Yes, we did go to Paris. Remember? We sat on the bench outside the Arc de Triomphe and watched the cars crash.
So you're proffering that Tegan is delusional?
I'm not proffering that she's delusional. I'm suggesting that Diana's Eiffel Tower was so magnificent that Tegan's just living in a wonderland all of her own.
She's channeling Diana.
Possibly.
she's living vicariously through Diana's.
We do need to be very careful, though, about talking about living vicariously through someone called Diana in Paris. Because
Perhaps that's what happened, right?
that might end very, very badly.
You know, you've got Diana, you've got the Eiffel Tower, and suddenly Tegan's mind, because she's a natural medium, so I've heard, just
When did you
channels-
hear this?
Channels Princess Diana. Oh, it's all over the psychic newspapers. Tegan Higginbotham, psychic extraordinaire.
Do you even have to buy the psychic newspapers? Or?
No. It's delivered like
Surely they're delivered before they were even written.
exactly. I wrote a brilliant article about Tegan's psychic powers next year.
It's in 3 weeks' time, isn't
3
it?
weeks time. Yes.
But I also think that we get a bit more of a window into Tegan's mind because she can remember obscure 90s television commercials in the shape of the Terry's Chocolate Orange commercial. And by the way, Paul, to back Tegan up on this, it's 100% a commercial,
Yep.
not a Vicar of Dibley episode.
It is.
Wasn't a crossover.
Yes, because I know Vicar of Dibley, and I know Terry's Chocolate Orange, and I know Dawn French.
And I know random 90s commercials, so we're sweet with everything.
Yes.
So you know all the bulky sort of really important stuff, and I know random commercials. But she remembers that. But going to Paris seems to be difficult. She sort of knows she was there, but she doesn't really know what happened there. I mean, there was a line at one point in the last episode where they were talking about the Duckwaz, and where they were talking about Duckwaz, and Paul goes, "We had a Duckwaz in Paris." Tegan's response was, "Where?" So Paul had to once again say, "In Paris." Now he's reinforcing again. I think he's trying to remind her of maybe a happier time, a simpler time.
In Paris.
And then she did also say that they point that out way too much, that they were in Paris.
So, I'm just trying to get my head around this. Like, you don't think it's the usual thing of you're in France and it's a country known for like wine and champagne, and you're like, breakfast, sure, I'm going to pour champagne on my, or champagne as Tegan pronounces it, on my Cocoa Pops, or Cocoa Pops as I believe they call it in Paris. And you know,
Your understanding of worldwide food is magnificent.
Indeed, or, you know, I'm going to have my cappuccino with like a dash of like real French brandy and stuff. Like, you don't think it's just...
I'd like to apologise to whatever country you were doing the impression of, that I don't think it was France. So whenever we work that out, we'll apologise to that nation on behalf of that nation. Mm-hmm. But the only other thought that I had, though, was maybe she's being too clever. And maybe there's actually another reason for their trip to Paris they're not allowed to talk about. And the maybe we talk about this too much could actually be a sudden realisation of I've said too much, and trying to cover their tracks through the idea of being forgetful. Possibly.
What, they work for ASIO?
I don't think anyone works for ASIO anymore, do they? Government cuts usually rule that out.
No, that was a CSIRO. I know they got... Oh, we wouldn't know if ASIO got cut.
You wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
You know, you wouldn't know unless it's in the psychic newspapers you were talking about.
Yes.
But I think that's our aim.
Maybe she's thinking about a future trip to Paris. And she's
Possibly
just channeling
psychic,
that.
medium,
Psychic,
wonderful.
There we go.
I think that's
Good
our
stuff.
aim. I think over the next few weeks, what we have to try to work out, because I'm quite sure the reference will be dropped again, because it pops up every week. But I think we need to work out exactly what Tegan was doing in Paris, if she was there for a start, and secondly, what she was doing there, if she was there, and thirdly, does Paul actually know?
Yes.
Maybe Paul didn't know what her real purpose was. Maybe they went. Paul thought they were there eating their way across France, and instead, what we've ended up with is maybe she's put a hit on someone, or
Like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of deal.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah, only with probably a better script, because I trust their writing more than I trust Pitt Jolie.
Well, there's no more Pitt Jolie, is there?
There's no more Pitt Jolie, and that's why. I think it's the poor quality of writing, and they realised they couldn't compete with a Verhoeven Higginbotham.
Higgins Bosom.
Higgs boson.
Higgs Bosom.
Anyway,
Yes. That's a rabbit hole.
yes. Now to assess sort of the show itself. Now we've sort of addressed Tegan and Paul individually. I think the first thing we need to address collectively,
Yes.
as a collective,
Collectively.
relates back to fashion.
Fashion.
Turn to the left. Actually, don't turn to the left. The microphone's to my right.
Yeah.
So if I turn to the left, you won't hear me. But we've talked about Maggie.
Yes.
Where's Pitbull?
I know. We've got the lowdown on what Mags is wearing.
Mm.
What's the Pits up to?
What's Pitbull up to? I mean,
What's he using to shine his head?
I'm sure there's a bowling ball buffer somewhere, but
How many buttons are done up? All of them? 2? 3? What is this a reflection of?
how is he wearing formal pants? Is he wearing style jeans? Is he wearing ripped jeans? Is he able to fit hands in his pockets, or are the pockets too tight?
Yeah. Does he need, like Maggie, a stylist to come along and actually craft pockets into pants specifically for his needs?
Bib and brace overalls, I'm calling by week 8.
Yeah, you know, Maggie, they talked about Maggie in the sleeve, looking like she was in a sleeve. Can we just get a look where Pitbull just looks like he's in a trouser? Just one leg.
So a sleeve and a trouser.
Sleeve and a trouser.
Together, they're an outfit.
Indeed.
Perfect.
Sleeve and trouser, I see it all over Broadway.
And I think we've also seen a higher quality, though, of something you don't expect. Again, this is reality television we're dealing with, obviously. But we've seen a high quality of investigative journalism. We've seen investigative journalism, the likes of which you definitely haven't seen in the American election.
60 Minutes could really take a page out of this.
60 Minutes would probably take the page out of this, claim they wrote it, and then try to claim all the rights for it, while abandoning a producer somewhere. But what we've learned is that at the end of this series, there's going to be a Nuremberg of baking. You know, the Nuremberg show trials, Nuremberg of baking coming up. There's been scandals left, right, and centre.
Full of scandals. More scandals than the
Trump-Clinton campaigns combined,
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
You've had pizza biscuits. You've had a cracker and a biscuit.
Ugh.
You've had rhubarb gate, of course. How can we forget rhubarb
You've had
gate?
sugar and savoury.
Yeah, exactly. We've had the macarons, and yeah, that was weird. Brownies and cakes, and the age-old question, which opened up episode 1, is a Lamington a cake?
Lamington is not a cake.
Lamington is
Or
not a
is
cake. Well, it's made up of day-old sponge, and sponge is a cake.
Cake, yes.
So it's comprised of cake.
Indeed.
So something that's comprised of cake, still a cake. Is a Lamington just a type of cake?
See, Pitbull Matt Moran, Mr. Worldwide, proffers that any cake with coconut on the outside
Yeah.
is a Lamington.
So batter and coconut.
Yeah. So last night I was out at dinner and got myself some fried ice cream because it's a local Thai joint, and they had coconut in the batter on the outside.
Are you saying you had a Lamington?
I had a deep fried Lamington.
I think Matt Moran would have to count that as a Lamington.
I'm looking forward to see it on the menu at Aria.
I think that's the problem. I don't think he's ever had a Lamington on the menu at Aria, and if it's not on the menu at Aria, it doesn't exist in Matt Moran's mind.
I know, he's just grasping at concepts.
This is why they made that thing the other day with the pistachios afterwards, because that was something he's gone, I'd put that on the menu. And rhubarb. I mean,
Yes.
I know that you talked about, Tegan and Paul talked obviously about rhubarb being a wonderful thing to use. When was the last time you used rhubarb in something?
I think the last time I had any kind of dealings with rhubarb was like back when I was a kid and was watching that cartoon that was on the ABC, Rhubarb and Mustard or whatever it was.
Rhubarb and mustard, now there's a dish. I mean, I think the hot apple pies used to be made with rhubarb instead of apple.
Oh, that was
didn't they?
Choco.
I was one of them.
And then Choco's got more expensive, so they actually started using apples.
Cheaper to use apples. Now we've had high quality journalism, but we've also had some good sponsorship talk, I think.
Oh yes.
Now let's get to the elephant in the room. Michelle's Patisserie.
Michelle's Patisserie.
We're going back to that 90s commercial again. Michelle's Patisserie. I understand. I completely understand Michelle's Patisserie. I understand it as a sponsor of the Great Australian Bake Off.
Why? How?
There is nothing that can be put up in that tent that is worse than anything that they sell at Michelle's Patisserie. So the idea is it's comparative scale.
Even Cheryl's wine cake?
You know, Cheryl's liquid wine cake falls apart. You think to yourself, well, I'd still eat that over a custard tart.
I guess you could put it in a glass and just slurp on
Give me a
it.
straw. Just give me a straw and drink it. Probably going to taste better.
Add some medication to it.
I reckon that, when Fiona's top layer fell down and she said, fuck a million times, that'd definitely be an improvement on a Michelle's meat pie.
That's true.
I mean, the amount of gristle that's in there,
Ugh.
it's pretty much just gristle and nothing else. And we used to have them all the time. because my mother hated me. And
She didn't hate you. You just lived in an area that was culturally void of any real food.
yeah, we just lived in a place where basically Michelle's Patisserie was the fast option for pies.
It was like at the Hatton restaurant because
It really was. You've got the Michelle's hat on the front. One hat.
I've heard of these Hatton restaurants. There must be one over there. Look, Michelle's. Ooh la la. That sounds French. Your mom's gonna love
Oh, she'll love it. I hope she listens. I really hope she listens. And
Right.
again, we'll apologise to whoever that was an impression of, because I don't think it was my mother. But episode 3, they got involved in the sponsorship talk too, I think. And I think we need to investigate it a little bit further. I'd like to know if there was any money exchanged.
For?
First of all, the pie shop.
Okay, the pie shop. I think it's brilliant. I want to add that to my bucket list in Melbourne. You know why? Because I want to compare that to the delights that you can find in Sydney's Pie Tin just off King Street. Is that going to be good? Do you reckon?
I hope we get some free pies out of that, because, my God,
The
that'd be brilliant.
amazing pie that ate Newtown.
And the Oreo cookie. Anyway, we're not going to plug, because we're not being paid for it, and we're certainly not getting freebies. So we need to just move. I'm hopeful, but
Yeah.
you know, I host a history podcast. We haven't got anything yet, and I've been trying for weeks now. I've been dropping names of every product I love, and nothing has come in the mail yet.
Anything that's in like the modern era and not, that was advertised in the 1800s.
That could be my problem. I asked for snuff last episode. That could be my problem. I also want to know if the check is in the mail from the rhubarb producers of Australia, because that was an impassioned defence. It wasn't like rhubarb's wonderful. It was passionate.
It was a call to arms, really. It was an Evita Peron moment. Start on the balcony.
I've got this image. I've got this image now of, funnily enough, not Tegan, but I've got Paul in like the Evita dress on the balcony.
Yes, or
don't cry for me. I love rhubarb.
in front of the Lake of Remembrance, whatever it is in Washington, with
The reflection pool. Yes.
the reflection pool, Martin Luther King style. I have a dream.
Of rhubarb in everything.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go with that. Mm-hmm. And they did a decent. They've done a decent job so far of reviewing the bakes, far more thoroughly than we ever will.
Indeed, I learned more.
Yeah.
I learned a lot more listening to them about those bakes than I do just watching the show.
Yeah, because half the time they're cutting back and forward, and you're waiting for that thing you saw in the ad, or in my case, you're looking at the computer, typing something hilarious and sending that into the ether in tweet format. And so the little nuances you miss, and that's one of the areas the podcast has been great.
Yeah.
My favourite review they've done so far was all the landmarks.
Yes, indeed.
I did think, however, that they missed a few points. I think with James. Oh, James. Perth. Now, again, I've been to Perth as well. In the same way that Pitbull felt the need to tell everyone that he'd been to Perth when he was saying that I've never heard of the Bell Tower. I've been to Perth several times. I'm not convinced the Bell Tower exists.
Look, if he did the Perth courthouse, I'd have known about it because I listened to another podcast done by some awesome person that does local history in Australia, and Perth courthouse was mentioned. If he did that, I'd have been down with it.
You'd have been down with the courthouse?
Down with the courthouse. I can get behind that.
Get behind the courthouse.
Get behind the courthouse.
Okay. I'll move on. But I'm not convinced that it exists. There's only two things in Perth. There's the Wacker and there's Kings Park. And
Why didn't you do the whacker?
could have done the Wacker. Could have done Kings Park. Just make trees.
I know. Imagine
Make
that.
a really tall tree. One tall tree. It's Kings Park.
Imagine-
There's a cafe. There's a really cool cafe in Kings Park.
Yeah.
Could have just done the cafe overlooking Perth.
I just want to get back to the whacker. He could have done. You remember in the Women's Weekly Cookbook
Oh, yes, the swimming pools and the cricket pitches. He could have made a cricket.
with the green coconut? It was all
But
there.
then it would have been a Lamington.
Maparan would have been mind
blown. There would have been a Lamington all of a sudden, and that wouldn't have worked at all. Now he could have just. I know he was upset that it all fell apart, but we didn't know that the bell tower existed. He could have done anything and just said, "That's the bell tower,"
Yes.
and everyone would have gone, "Good likeness."
But you know the best thing to come out of that was Tegan's comparison of the falling down of his creation to that of the Perth economy.
It was a great
genius.
Oh, it was Alan Bond worthy. It really
was.
You know, this swan's for you. But and we also can't do that without touching upon, I think, Tegan and Paul's favourite baker, and very rapidly our favourite baker, Fiona.
Fucking Fiona.
Oh yeah,
Sweary canary Fiona.
Fiona and her Godzilla camel.
Boom. Boom.
We just that camel. Like, I really wish that the camel. I hope that she did the camel to scale. That it's actually a camel that's bigger than the pyramids. It wasn't perspective she was going for. It was just a really big camel.
Like Gondwana land camel.
Yes. And you know, Egyptian people fleeing like it's a Godzilla movie. You know, here's the camo! Again, apologise to whichever group I just did an impression of there because it wasn't Egypt.
Me no Raki that.
Me no Raki that indeed. And Fiona's been wonderful on Twitter, as they pointed out, that she's been fantastic. We were all involved in the last episode of explaining to Fiona what was happening on the screen while her Foxtel Go wasn't working. We were complimenting her on her cardigan. We were telling her that she looked good in the cardigan. We were pointing out to her that she was doing fantastically well and was only swearing a little bit. That everyone liked her bake. Sort of reminding her about, you know, everything that was happening. She did talk about, you know, well, I might lose my Foxtel subscription, to which my response was, but how will you know how you go?
Yes.
If you don't
How will you know if you don't win?
And then we also had, you know, wonderful interactions afterwards when they talked about this coming week where Noel dances in the promo, which then featured GIFs back and forth with everybody on Twitter of just different people dancing. It was Christopher Walken in Weapon of Choice, and there was a number of different GIFs of dancing. But the benefit is they've just let Fiona be Fiona.
Yes. And that's something I appreciate is that, you know, Australians often come over on reality TV as not that intelligent, very bland, but when you get
You're talking about Survivor at the moment, aren't you?
let's just leave Survivor, which kicked out the best of the bunch.
I play a moral game. Moving on.
Yes. But when it comes to cooking shows, we're really good in certain circumstances of getting these great people on who you just want to hang with. I mean, I know I'm deviating, but MasterChef is great for it. My Kitchen Rules, to a point.
Did anybody see Zumbo to tell me?
Get that word out of here.
Answers on the back of a stamp, please.
But Bake Off has kind of mastered this art. They've got this brilliant bunch of people who you just want to invite around for a barbecue, and you just feel like they're your best friends.
And what I love with Fiona, one thing I loved, I think it typifies Fiona for me perfectly, and Tegan and Paul discussed it wonderfully well, was when she dropped the pie and it's the top layer was smashed and she's just swearing her head off at it. And what I loved, and I think Tegan really zoomed in on this, and it is the perfect point, which is that she wasn't just saying, oh, that was really good bake, I was really happy with that. She's swearing at everyone going, that was fucking perfect. It was fucking perfect. There is a self-confidence in her baking, which I think Tegan just encapsulated. That was the line that stuck with her, it wasn't just, oh, it was good, I really tried on that one. That was fucking perfect.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that self-confidence. Not the sort of self-effacing, oh, it was okay. No. Fucking perfect.
Honesty and integrity right there. Just genuineness. I want a T-shirt that says, fuck Fiona. I don't want people to misconstrue that as being a negative thing or something really, really nasty. But really, it's just like I just want to be as honest as I can be. Just like Fiona.
Now, before we wrap it up, and we're going to wrap it up shortly, but before we wrap it up, there's a couple of other things I need to address. Paul's the kiss of death. There's no other way to say it. I'm not going to segue into it. Paul's the kiss of death.
2 eggs, Paul.
Right. What I want you to do, Mr. Verhoeven, is take a long, hard look at yourself.
Yeah.
Because week 2, you told everyone that you thought Diana was wonderful and fantastic, and Diana can go all the way here.
Then what happened?
Diana went home in week 3.
Boom. Goodbye.
So week 3, Boyan, I can see it in his eyes. He's going all the way here. Boyan, you even put money on it, $20 on it. Week 4.
Then what happens?
Bye-bye, Boyan.
Boom. Gone.
Bye-bye, Boyan. So the only person that seems to be avoiding this curse so far is Antonio. Toot toot. And I can't help but wonder, is Paul actually deliberately jinxing everybody else in the tent to give Antonio the win?
Are you insinuating that Paul's like some kind of like voodoo king?
Well, you've already said that you think that Tegan's a bit of a psychic.
They're obviously an occult power couple.
A legitimate power couple.
Yes.
Real powers going on.
Real powers going on.
Real powers going on.
I mean, I do want to... I did remember something I wanted to say about Paul. And it's, Paul, you know, you're absolutely right. Biscuit barrels. We had one. It was yellow. It was plastic. And it was made to look like a barrel, but it was like bright yellow. And I want to say that Pandan, yes, it tastes like arse, but not just any arse. It is green, so it is like tastes like a Martian's arse.
A Martian's ass.
A Martian's arse.
Yeah, no, Well, I mean, I've never tasted a Martian's ass, so I can't.
You haven't lived. Obviously.
Apparently not. Apparently I haven't lived. And one last mention of another baker in the tent at the moment, and it's not for any other reason than he's sort of become well, in some ways the bane of my existence, and in some ways a delight. That's Jeremy.
Jeremy's been spoken about even.
Okay, so what's been happening is, and we mentioned this on Twitter last week, that every time they say that Jeremy's done something, we get Jeremy by Pearl Jam sung, but with whatever's happened. So at one point last week it was Jeremy's bacon, and it was like every single thing that Jeremy did all the way through the show.
Jeremy's biscuit.
Yeah, Jeremy's
cracker, whatever.
Jeremy's, it's consistent.
Pizza, Jeremy.
Yeah, what I'm actually encouraging everyone to do is get on board with this. If you'll find it actually makes Jeremy's bakes go a lot faster. He's a good baker, and I like him, but you know, it just jazzes it up a little bit. And I actually like the idea that he might have started doing that. Obviously, it's pre-recorded, so we can't go back. But I think it would be fantastic if Jeremy was at his bench and just like a madman just started singing what he was doing. You know, Jeremy's whisking the peaks of meringue. Just something along those lines.
Jeremy's duckwares.
And it just throws everybody else in the tent off a little bit. I think it could have been a really good tactic for him. Now,
take note, future bakers.
Now, I think we need to finish up with two things. First of all, who do we think will win? Are we on the Antonio train?
I love Antonio, but you know me. I get my spidey senses tingling. You know, just get my vibes happening, and Olivia's given me the vibes.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that I think she's doing quite well.
Yeah,
I jumped on board the Knoll. Well, it's probably not a train. It might be a steam train.
It's a blimp.
It's a Zeppelin.
It's a Zeppelin.
I'm on the Knoll Zeppelin.
Indeed.
We're touring beautifully at the moment over Newark and New Jersey, and sort of we're not going to go into the tower and we're not going to crash and owe the humanity. But I'm on the Knoll Zeppelin, and it's a beautiful way to travel. It's a glorious, old-fashioned way to travel.
Quiet.
I'm reclining in luxury. I feel like I should be wearing tweed.
Indeed, and it's, you know, just like a Zeppelin, Noel isn't in your face. He's quiet. He's in his own sphere.
He just wants a ribbon. He just wants a ribbon. Give the man a ribbon.
Yeah.
And personally, I'd like to see him win because I'd like to see Paul's theory of him being a Cyberman tested. If he does suddenly delete the Bake-Off tent, well, Verhoeven was right. And if Verhoeven's right, well, then I'll doff my cap to him.
Yeah.
And I'll doff my cap because I'm on the Zeppelin.
There's someone else we haven't mentioned and we need to mention because she's been mentioned quite a few times on the cooling rack, and that is Monica.
Yep.
Monica is just, she's the aunt you want, isn't she?
Yeah. You know, I had sort of the mad auntie, and she's sort of along those vibes.
Yeah.
You know, she's
so
wonderful,
talented and caring, and that's something about this tent. It's just.
I've never seen so much. We talked about this. I've never seen.
Yeah.
Never seen everyone help everybody so much.
Yeah, and it's a competition because that's in the true spirit of competition. You want to beat the best. I think that's why it's very difficult to go, yeah, that person's got it, or this person's got it. You've got this whole bunch of people with talents that are fairly consistent in what they're putting out and having these little moments of brilliance, and it's anyone's race at the moment.
Yeah, it's not like last year's British Bake Off where we openly
Nadia.
cheered Nadia home.
First week.
Week one. We just want to put it on record. Week one, we were Team Nadia and we rode that horse all the way to the final and all the way to victory. And now all the way through her appearing on Extra Slice and things like that. And by the way, Lifestyle Food, if you don't get...
Nadia.
No, well, I was going to say, by the way, Lifestyle Food, if you don't get Messrs. Verhoeven and Higginbotham onto your own version of Extra Slice for next season,
call it the
you're
cooling
not
rack.
trying. Call it the cooling rack.
Call it the cooling rack.
If you don't get them on, you're not trying hard enough.
Exactly.
And I think the last thing just to mention before we move briskly to the end here is that this week's Bread Week. Now, Bread Week holds a special place in our heart.
Our ciabatta-shaped hearts.
Our ciabatta-shaped hearts. And it goes back to last year's British Bake Off and Alvin.
Alvin.
Now, Alvin, the reason why we love Alvin was that Alvin consistently made bread, even when he wasn't supposed to.
And not just bread. Ciabatta.
Ciabatta loaf. I'm sure he 2 or 3.
They look like ciabatta.
2 or 3 times he was supposed to make something bread-based, and ciabatta appeared.
Ciabatta
and then the
appeared.
1 week where he actually was making bread, he didn't make any ciabatta.
No.
He won. It was a beautiful bread. That was his beautiful bread sculpture that he did with 15 million loaves, and I believe there's probably some buildings in England that have now been erected out of those loaves because he made so many of the things.
Look, no one went hungry in England that week.
No, everyone just sort of gnawed on the side of a wall.
The gluten intolerant people missed out, but
But Alvin and ciabatta just became the running theme, and when he was voted out, we were disappointed that the
Yeah.
bread was leaving the tent. And again, there was only one bread week, and he made it about 5 times,
Yeah.
and everything just seemed to come out as ciabatta, and he always seemed confused as to how he got there. So bread week, I'm hoping
yes,
they get them to make ciabatta,
that would be beautiful.
and then I'd like to see them bring Alvin in for special commentary.
Yes. This bread, it looks like ciabatta. I just want one more time, Alvin. One more.
Sadly, I don't think we're going to get that. So anyway, this has been episode 1. A somewhat successful episode, I think. Well,
Yeah.
it's up to everyone else to judge that. Hopefully you like this. Hopefully this has been entertaining and amusing for you.
Certainly
and
has been for us.
we've had some fun with it anyway.
Yes.
And hopefully you're all going to continue to listen as we continue to appraise the work of Messrs. Verhoeven and Higgs Boson, Higginbotham, Botham,
Hannah
Bassingthwaight,
Gadsby and
Higginbotham.
Yes.
I can do it, Tegan. Your turn next time.
And to put it out there, I'd like to pose this question. Where do you think Tegan squeezes the ding from?
And with that, we will see you all next time here on The Washing Up